Everyone has an idea of what they consider to be normal. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter in what context we're talking about. Talking about having a normal life. He's a normal guy. That's what we normally do. But what does normal look like when mental illness is your normal? That's what we're going to talk about today on Shattered the Podcast. Here we go. All of us, every single one of us, has in their minds an idea of what normal looks like. When I was first injured, all I wanted to do was be normal again. I remember the first time my medications ever were perfect. I turned to my wife and said, "You know what? It's wonderful to feel normal all of a sudden." I forgot what it felt like. But when you're like me and mental illness is a part of every facet of every part of your life, then your normal is mental illness. And that's why we want to talk about it, because if I can't normalize the fact, if I can't be free to talk about what's going on in my head without judgment, without people thinking, "Oh, he's a freak," then we don't have understanding. And understanding is what we're trying to shoot for, isn't it? I've never felt so mentally ill, quote unquote, as much as I have since the pandemic started. First off, I joked. I said, "This is awesome. Everybody has now got a mental illness because you have to stay home and you can't be with people," which is one of the main things that happened to me through my mental illness. My default is to be by myself or just be with my wife. Now, if you knew me, you would know that before my illness, I was a complete extrovert. I needed to be around people. I needed to have people constantly in my life. I needed to be almost validated by the relationships that I had with people. I needed them to be aware of me. Now I couldn't care less. Something called the Irish goodbye. I talk about it a bit. I often do this. At the end of something, I leave. I muck around. I don't wait for, you know, everybody to be happy with me leaving. I don't go around to every single person. I might talk to whoever is important. If my wife's in an event and I'm leaving, of course I'll let her know, but I'll just slip out the door. It's easier, it's simpler, and it's better for my mental health. So a good friend of mine asked me recently what it's like to actually live aware 100% of the time that you have a mental illness, that you struggle in the morning, that you struggle at night. It's hard to say because mental illness is my normal. Protecting myself is, for me, normal now. So, for example, tomorrow I'm going in front of 3 classes of kids to talk about mental illness, to educate them, to bring understanding to them. I can't just do what I would have done years ago, which would have been stay up late, watch a movie, set the alarm for the time that I needed to get up, go out, do the talk, come home. Can't do that. I know that tonight I've got to take my meds early. I know that I can't dwell on it too much. Can't spend a lot of time thinking about tomorrow. In fact, tonight I'm going to spend a lot of my time trying to distract myself. I'm not nervous about what I'm going to say, but I'm nervous that I'm going to not be effective, that the words that I say will have no impact on the people that I'm saying them to. And even that thought of, I have to plan ahead. If I'm getting up early in the morning, for example, to do an interview, I need to plan ahead the night before. I need to take my pills a couple of hours early. I need to have the questions sorted in my head so that I can turn it off. Because that's the thing, it's not going to go away tonight. Speaking at the schools tomorrow is not going to go away until it's done. And even when it's done, I'm going to come back feeling the emotional tsunami. Well, actually, it's this emotional earthquake where you get aftershocks. That's what that's like. All the morning, you're getting these pre-shocks. You're aware that you're about to face an emotional steeplechase. Then it'll happen, being in school. I had to laugh. A woman the other day that she was doing a presentation and I was just there supporting her. She came over and she said, Mark, the thing that makes me the most positive about today is how calm you are. You exude calmness. I thought this was wonderful because I was like the proverbial duck. Up above the water, I was just drifting along. But underneath, I was keep straight, keep straight. Well, watch out for that. Don't look at this. Don't look at that kid. Don't worry about what they're doing. They said something. What did they say? I no longer really am fazed by that happening. I will often not hear what somebody said because my mind is consumed with something. I don't know what that's going to be. Could be consumed with a mistake that I made 20 years ago. Could be consumed about thinking about my kids. Could be thinking about money. There's so many things that come into play when it comes to any decision when you've got mental illness. Now, I can't earn a full-time wage the normal way. I can't go to a job. My mind cannot handle it. Being forced to be focused for little stretches is okay. But if I'm forced to focus 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I will break down. It will be too much for me. And even at times, working part time jobs is extremely hard. So, whenever we talk about money, whenever the kids come in and they want to ask about a school photo, it throws me into an absolute turmoil because the money that I'm bringing in is sporadic and it's not enough. If you want to support us, you can go to Patreon. Ah. But why I'm telling you this is to answer my friend, to let him know that my mind is constantly in turmoil. My mind is constantly fighting. Sometimes it's fighting to stay rational. Sometimes it's reminding myself that I don't need to commit suicide. Sometimes it's fighting with that thought, convincing myself, reminding myself why suicide is bad. and it's not what I want. Even little things like taking my kids to the movies today. I had to remind myself to smile. I've recently learned that I scowl a lot. I didn't realize this. I have resting angry face. When I'm not thinking about something, I look really, really, really angry. I didn't know this. I'm not most of the time, but it's just my default. I am always wary. I'm always aware of the situation that I'm in. So with my kids today, I had to make sure that I turned off my cranky frown face and smiled because they wanted to know, Dad, did you enjoy the movie? I didn't. But I'm not going to tell them that. Certainly not in the cinema. It's like, yeah, man, that was cool. What did you like about? Oh, yeah, I like that too. Smiling, just giving them that little smile, telling them that everything's fine, that I'm fine, that they're fine. I wish that in many ways my mental illness was more interesting because I feel like I need to talk about what I've been through so that other people don't go through it. Something I loved the other day, I did a bunch of public speaking in a school and I opened it up to questions. And for the first time, the kids just asked question after question after question. And they were probing and they were insightful. And you could tell that the kids were learning. And I walked away from that class thinking, you know what? All of my pain now has had a purpose because at least one or two of those kids, and perhaps more, will not make the same mistakes I made. And that's why I talk about this stuff. It's hard. It's not terribly interesting. It's not sexy. You know, I could tell the story of the day I got injured till the cows come home. That's a sexy story. It's a horrible story. It's a story I wish I didn't have. One of the things that I'm supposed to do when I do my public speaking is I'm supposed to talk about hope a lot, how there's always hope. Everything will be okay. And to an extent, I agree with that. And I always finish off with, hey, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a podcaster, I've worked in radio, I've done all these things. So my life is good. But the real hope that any person with a mental health illness has is that they hope that they'll have the strength to keep going. One of my old friends, a very wise person, I'm hoping to get on the podcast. I've actually changed genders recently. They are now a them. And I'd like to talk to them. I'd like to talk to them about why they would do something like that. Because it's outside my frame of reference. I don't get it. I grew up, my uncles all called me girls' names. I was Margaret and Maggie whenever they called me. Thought it was funny. My son's got a friend called Patrick. All today he was Patricia. Just it's a holdover. Pronouns and that sort of stuff. I couldn't care less about. I don't think I'm supposed to care about them. In fact, I'm so often trying so hard to just get through a day that the effort of trying to understand that different people now need different pronouns is just beyond me. I can't fathom it. I can't give it value because it's so unimportant in the grand scheme of things. The people that I speak with through MEACT, and we did a wonderful interview with the head of MEACT a couple of months ago with Heidi. Um, hoping to get her back on again soon because she was amazing. But the other people that speak, like my story's bad, but there's stories that are much, much worse. And every time I hear one of these people's stories, I'm blown away by their courage, by their fortitude, by their ability to turn their pain into something positive by sharing with young people the mistakes that they made, the poor choices that they made. There are people out there that you look at them, you have no idea of what's going on behind where they are. That person that had an outburst in McDonald's, sure, they might have just been being a jerk. Or they might be really struggling with something. That just happened to be the thing that sent them over the edge. We don't know unless we try to understand, unless we try to learn. One of the things that I did when I was working at a shop just recently, whenever a customer came in loud, anxious, nervous, demanding, I would take them aside very gently and just say, "Is everything okay? Are you doing all right?" The guys in my office talked about these nightmare customers. We have these nightmare customers, they're terrible. I never had any problem with them because if they came in shouting, screaming, angry, I'd just say, "Look, mate, I am going to do everything I can to help you fix this today, but I need you to help me understand what the problem is." Am I a genius shop worker? No. I just try to see behind the facade. I try to look behind the angst and the things that don't jive me with me well. In your workplace, you might have somebody that just loses it. And you look at them and you go, why? Why would you do that? And the obvious thing is just to ostracize them. We all want to. We all do it. We just want to go work and come home. We don't want to have to deal with other people. But how much better would their life be if you were understanding and you were able to say, "Mate, you're having a hard day. I know what your history is. Do you need to get out of here?" Go to your boss. Say, "Mate, this person, they're struggling with their mental health today. We need to give them a break somehow. Maybe let them go and sit outside on the balcony and just breathe for a while." If somebody was choking, you wouldn't tell them to get over it and go back to work. You would fix the choking, get them to cough up whatever it was, do the Heimlich, do whatever you need to do. to let them get over the immediate crisis so that then they can get back to work. That's how it is with mental illness sometimes. Just sometimes things get on top of you. It's nobody's fault. Nobody did anything. It just gets super, super hard all of a sudden, and you don't know why. And you do. You feel like you're choking on something. You feel like you're just stuck. You're in that same experience. If you could just get away for a second, if you could just stop whatever it is that's causing that angst, it might just take a 5-minute walk. But imagine a world where somebody with a mental illness didn't feel like they couldn't go to work because nobody was going to understand. People are going to make fun of them if they have that issue. If they have a panic attack. Same as a person with epilepsy, I guess. Worst thing in the world for a person with epilepsy is to have a seizure in public. I know that because my wife, my 2 daughters, both have epilepsy. All 3 of them would be horrified if they had a seizure in public, my wife especially. Why do we not think of that when it comes to a person that has panic attacks? Why don't we say, hey, you're having a serious medical crisis? Now, some people, they can have a seizure, recover within 10, 15 minutes, and they're back on their feet. My girls, they have a seizure, they're gone for the rest of the day. They just need to rest. They're exhausted. Nobody would say to them, okay, great, dust yourself off. You probably bit your tongue. You've got a bit of vomit on you. You may have soiled yourself. But if you could just clean all that up and go back to work. Think of somebody that's having a mental issue, a panic attack. They don't mean it. It's not their fault. They don't want to be having the panic attack. But if you've got that communication level going on now, understanding, hey, sometimes I have panic attacks for no reason. I just need your understanding. And if we look at them and just go, you know what? Thank you for telling me. What's our best course of action? Which is the same as what my wife does with her epilepsy. If I have a seizure at work, here is what I want you to do. She doesn't come out and shout it from the rooftops, but she mentions it to her boss. Mate, you don't know this. I have epilepsy. It's under control. I take medication. I do all the things that I need to do, but there is an off chance that something might happen. And if it does, this is what I need you to do. Imagine how different a person's life would be if a panic attack, a moment of mania that they can't control, a time when they freak out because of their mental health. Imagine if they felt comfortable coming straight back to that place instead of wanting to run, to hide, to pretend it didn't happen, because that's what happens now. I freaked out in front of everybody I know. I am so embarrassed. I'm done. Mental illness is my normal. We're going to keep talking about it. This week, marriage and mental illness. Mary is going to come back. She's going to be sitting with me. We're going to be chatting. I think we're talking grocery shopping this week, something like that. And then got another interview coming up for you that will be on Friday as well. I'll leave that as a surprise. That's a bit of a big deal. Otherwise, subscribe, like, and share. Please help us get the word out about the podcast, and let's try and normalize the conversation around mental illness, make it so that sufferers and people who don't suffer can just talk about it as normal and not see it as anything different than a medical condition. Something that you might need help with sometimes, but 99.9% of the time, you're not going to need any help. We can go about our business. Want you to have a great week. Subscribe, like, and share. If you like what you've heard, get the word out and, join the conversation. Have a great week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Shattered the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.